time for little girls to dress like little girls. Sugar and spice.
If you are 80s born and 90s raised, I know you remember this one. I used to have this movie on repeat, easily one of my favorite movies. I haven't watched this in a hot minute, but watching it now at my big age, child, these kids were bad as hell. We're talking about embezzlement, employee fraud, improper disposal of a body, theft, auto theft. The list goes on. And of course, I have my thoughts. But before we get to that, it's time to recap. So let's get into it. So the movie starts with our main character, Sue Ellen, out shopping with her friends. She tells them how her mother will be leaving for Australia in a few days and how she plans to be free for the summer. We'll see how that turns out for her in just a little bit. We go to the family home where we see Sue Ellen's mom and siblings. Honestly, these kids were kind of rough. We had one child trying to steal money out of her wallet, another trying to burn a cockroach with a magnifying glass, this one not wanting to be bothered with anyone other than his friends. It's a hot mess. Then we have Sue Ellen gaslighting the hell out of her own mom.
Why did you leave your dishes in the sink for me? God, you take these things so personally.
Oh, let me mention how wasteful these kids are. After taking a good look at her household, I don't blame Miss Crandall for calling in some help. Enter this lady, Miss Sturag. Child, look at this house. These kids hadn't had a chore ever in life. Anyway, the kids are upset about the babysitter, and I don't know why, because obviously they need somebody to look after their badasses. Before Miss Crandall leaves, she makes sure that Miss Sturag knows she'll be taking care of 5 kids. You know, in case you didn't already know. And also gives her money for groceries and whatever else the kids may need. Miss Crandall will be gone for a couple of weeks, and part of me feels like she needs and deserves a break from their asses. Mothers need breaks. We are not superheroes. But another part of me is like, if you can't even handle them, this old lady couldn't possibly handle them either. But Miss Sturag didn't even wait for the taxi to bend the corner before she switched up.
All right, you little maggots, now line up. Time to go over the rules.
Excuse me?
Miss Sturag came in that house and showed out.
Hey! I was watching that!
TV rots your brains.
And interrupted little lover boy, Zach.
Call you later, Cynthia, darling. Ow!
And I don't even know why she thought to do this to Melissa.
Time for little girls to dress like little girls. Sugar and spice.
But then she took her curious ass into Kenny's room and saw too much for her little soul to take. In her defense, baby, that whole house was a little too much to take. The kids flooded to Sue Ellen's room to complain about their new babysitter, causing Sue to go and confront her. Child, look at this chore chart. Let me say this. When I was a child watching this, I thought the babysitter was me. However, as an adult, she was trying to give these kids the structure that they so desperately needed. Anyway, they go into Miss Sturag's room and quickly discover that she has taken a permanent trip to the upper room. Child, that done stressed the poor lady out. During this discovery, Kenny returns home and helps the other kids cover her. They try to figure out what to do with her body. To avoid the cops' questions and to prevent their mom from coming back home, these kids really can't stand their mom for some reason. They decide to drop Miss Sturag in the trunk of her own car and drop her off at a random funeral home. Call 911. In what world would they just up and take the body and not call the cops? But that's what they do. The next day, these kids get in Miss Sturag's car to go get some food in the house. Again, y'all are riding around in this dead lady's car. But on their way to the store, they discover that the money their mother left the babysitter is not in the folder. And where was this money, you ask? In Miss Sturag's pocket. the same babysitter that they dropped off at the funeral home. So essentially, they are broke for the whole summer. So Kenny and Sue Ellen start scrambling to figure out what they're gonna do for money. Calling their mom is off limits. Again, these kids really don't like their mama. Sue Ellen decides to get a job to take care of the house and the kids. Now, Sue Ellen thought it would be easy to get a job at a boutique somewhere, but she quickly learned that that wasn't the case, and she ended up here at Clown Dog with this guy.
Well, remember, put on a happy face.
Sue Ellen is already over this job, and realistically, how the hell is she working in Doc Martens? Those feet are screaming. But it's the end of the day, and she's cleaning up, and this guy, Brian, hears her complaints about her current job and unknowingly tells her what she needs to hear to make her next move. This helped also.
Now you're almost doing that correctly, but you forgot one very big thing. You forgot to put on a happy face.
Honestly, I would have quit too, but Sue Ellen starts working on getting a better job in the good old-fashioned American way, lying on her resume, and it works. She lands an interview with GAW, a fashion company, at least this what she thought, for a receptionist position. And this lady, Carolyn, was on one way too early in the morning for me.
You are supposed to go down to personnel. That is on the first floor. Do you understand?
Now, I wouldn't have cussed her out to her face since I was trying to get a job, but in my head, she would have been all types of sluts and dog face. Anyway, as luck would have it, Sue Ellen runs into Rose, who happens to be the hiring manager. Rose takes one look at her doctored resume and takes her on as her new receptionist. Plus, Rose was trying her best to avoid Carolyn getting the position since she couldn't stand her. It's important to note that Carolyn was up for the receptionist position before Sue Ellen got there. This causes some tension moving forward. And Rose didn't do any background, fact-checking. She took Rose on the strength of this resume child. But Rose shows Sue Ellen around the office, shows her her workspace, introduces her to her coworkers around the office, and gives her this bit of advice.
Whenever we're not alone or I'm on the phone and I ask you something, doesn't matter what it is, you always say, "I'm right on top of that, Rose." Okay?
Later on, while out with the kids at Chuck E. Cheese, Sue Ellen informs Kenny about her new job. She will be making $37,000 a year, which is great for 1991. But let me remind you, this is a 17-year-old kid. While leaving out, they spot these ladies stealing Miss Sturek's car.
Stop on it!
Liza?
Not Liza stealing the whip, child. And of course, they couldn't do anything about it because that will bring more questions and their mother returning. So Sue Ellen calls in a favor from Brian. After they make it home, Brian and Sue Ellen talk a little bit. Brian helps her out by offering leftover food since they are running out of food in the house, and Sue doesn't get paid for another 2 weeks. Brian also asks Sue Ellen out on a date. It's cute or whatever. But the next day, Sue Ellen officially starts her life as a working woman, and these kids had expensive tastes for breakfast.
So, what do you guys want for breakfast?
A steak.
Cheese omelet.
SpaghettiOs.
Okay. Breakfast is served.
Sue Ellen makes it to work, and the first face she runs into is Carolyn with her hating ass. She was pissed when she found out Sue Ellen got the receptionist position. But when she gets into her office, Rose tells her how the company has lost yet another contract. This is where Sue Ellen finds out that this is not a fashion company, but more like a uniform manufacturer. Rose shows her around and introduces her to the people who will be reporting to both her and Rose. Honestly, Rose deserves a counter. She was serving looks this whole time. I just know she has a loft overlooking the city. She just gives those vibes. Anyway, it's Sue Ellen's second day, so it's time to do a little work. Rose tells her to fax something, which leads her to try and ask Carolyn for some assistance. But before she could ask, she questions Carolyn about her lunch and learns that her brother brought it for her. Brian is her brother. Yeah, this is gonna get real interesting. But when Sue Ellen tries to ask Carolyn for help, of course she doesn't make it easy for her.
Being an executive administrative assistant, I'm sure you can figure that out.
Sue Ellen struggles with this tough until this lady, Kathy, comes into facts, and Sue Ellen sits in the cut and observes what she's doing. They end up talking, and Kathy offers to help out if she needs some assistance with her reports, which works in Sue Ellen's favor since she's currently swamped. When Rose suggests that Sue Ellen orders lunch, she tells her about the petty cash box in her desk. She also tells her that she's also able to cash checks for the employees since they are sometimes too busy to go to the bank and cash it themselves. Oh, and she also tells her to make sure to leave receipts for her purchase, and whatever she gets, she'll authorize it. I'm mentioning this for a reason. And of course, Sue Ellen starts to take full advantage immediately. It's around this time that we see that Sue Ellen has flawlessly accepted her role as mother in training, while Kenny is still doing him, being childish with his friends. Later on, we see Brian and Sue Ellen on their date. They are cute together. They talk about their college plans, and Sue Ellen wants to do fashion, of course, and Brian is really into oceanography. They both are struggling with deciding if what they've chosen will be a smart, lifelong career choice. At 17, it's a difficult choice to make, but they end up kissing and enjoying the rest of their date. Tell me why the very next day, all the food was gone because Kenny and his friends had the munchies. Baby, I would have cussed him and his friends clean out. She gives him some more money to buy food for the kids, but what does he do? He invites his friends over again to do this type of shit. Ciao. Later at work, Gus comes down to the factory acting like he was looking for Rose. He offers to take Sue Ellen out to lunch. This guy immediately gave creeper vibes.
When a woman gets older, she matures, she ripens, juices start flowing. What's to hide?
Anyway, when Sue Ellen makes it back to the office, it's clear that she's grossed out and Carolyn was in her feelings.
Now she's kissing up to Gus. I can't stand that conniving little snot.
We go to Rose and Sue Ellen talking about school uniforms for a company they're looking to score a contract with. Rose mentions that maybe the company should update their style. After Rose mentions meeting Gus for dinner, Sue Ellen inquires about him. Rose tells Sue Ellen the exact opposite of what Gus told her about him and Rose. Rose mentions how they are mutually exclusive and how they've even talked about moving in with each other. Of course, Gus mentioned none of that during lunch. Rose changes into another shirt and gives Sue Ellen a bit of advice.
Cucumber slices on your eyes, you'll feel much better.
Haul out of cucumbers.
Every girl over 25 should have a cucumber in their house.
We fast forward to Sue Ellen having another date with Brian, and they have fun at this toy store. Again, they are so cute. Things get a little sticky when Brian tries to invite Sue Ellen out on a double date with his sister. Quick reminder that his sister is Carolyn. She refused to double date, and then when Brian asked to pick her up from work, she refused that as well, which made Brian suspicious. He automatically assumes she's seeing someone else, and Sue Ellen tries to assure him that she's not. Their little argument turns into a breakup, and of course, we get the 90s after breakup montage. We fast forward to Kenny trying to be Julia Childs, burning the hell out of these waffles in this dirty-ass kitchen. Loverboy here steals some money out of Sue Ellen's briefcase, and then Walter takes an even bigger wad. Why did he take so much? And what did he need it for? These kids were so rotten. Tell me why when Sue Ellen got to work, there were flowers on her desk from Gus. This man was a trip. He gave her those flowers after he and Rose had just had a romantic getaway in Santa Barbara. Dude was a true sleazeball. Meanwhile, this hater had gotten a hold of Sue Ellen's resume. She's tasked her boyfriend to do some digging and see if the information on her resume is true or not. Oh, and that wad of cash that Walter stole, he bought a brand new entertainment system. Listen, these kids can't be trusted. Back at work, Rose needs Sue Ellen to finish a report for her ASAP, but her go-to report person, Kathy, is nowhere to be found. Shortly after, we see Kathy, who is clearly sick, come to drop off the report to Carolyn, just as Carolyn's talking to Brian. While trying to hide from Brian, Sue Ellen lands in this guy's office. I would have to risk it and run straight out. Why does this house still look a hot mess? And why are these freeloaders still in this house? While Kenny is not watching his siblings per usual, Walter hops his happy ass on top of the roof to fix the antenna, and you already know it ends badly. Back at work, Rose comes looking for Sue Ellen to get their report just in time for Carolyn to give it to her and tell her that Kathy was the one to complete it, not Sue Ellen. And this doesn't go how Carolyn expected it to.
I was wondering how you were going to get that and the research for the school presentation done. Carolyn, you want to be executive material? Keep an eye on Sue Ellen.
And right as Sue Ellen was watching these two go on about a date, she received a call letting her know that Walter had been hurt. Her co-workers were very surprised to find out she had a son, aka her little brother. On their way home, Sue Ellen takes a good look at her check and is introduced to Uncle Sam and his thievery. She initially thought that her check would be enough to cover what she took from petty cash, but unfortunately, that was a lie. Then she gets home to find the new home entertainment system that Walter bought.
It wasn't your money, it was my money.
Oh, well, now it wasn't really your money either. You embezzled it.
Tell me why there are only $30 left out of all the money she had. Loverboy bought his girl a diamond. Melissa bought a new bike and bought the dog his shiny new bone. They've been running it up. In all, they've spent over $3,000. Meanwhile, Sue Ellen has only bought a pair of boots, a magazine, and groceries that they eat up in hours. A mess.
How could you steal from me?
They were just following your irresponsible example.
Oh, shut up, Kenny.
And then, as soon as she gets to work, Rose lets her know that the deal with the school didn't come through, and now the business might be going under. While Sue Ellen is delivering the bad news, she gets an idea of how she can help the company revamp. Of course, Rose was all for it, but she had to get creative once Rose asked about the petty cash.
You do have enough in petty cash, right?
My house is fabulous. We can have it there. It'll be absolutely perfect.
Now, she had to convince her lazy siblings to clean up the house and contribute. So we get a montage of the kids finally cleaning up the house, repainting, all while Sue Ellen handles things at work. We also finally see Kenny being a part of the family and being an actual sibling. When Sue Ellen came home, child, her and Kenny gave unhappily married couple with this scene.
You've got the car and you don't even take me anywhere anymore. You know what? I'm sick and tired of not being appreciated.
I appreciate you.
Eat shit.
Meanwhile, these two are snooping and they end up finding Sue Ellen's driver's license, which revealed that she was only 17. We fast forward to the night of the fashion show and everything looks good. This is the cleanest this house has ever looked, and this is the best that Kenny ever looked as well. Child, he's had a whole makeover. Later on, while the party is going on, Loverboy makes a late appearance. Why did his girlfriend dump him?
Just don't understand. She was my moon goddess.
I know.
I hope he got that ring back. Anyway, back to this hater. Carolyn shows Rose what she found on Sue Ellen. And again, this didn't go how she thought it would.
This is by far and away the most petty, spiteful, vindictive machination you have ever concocted.
And this creep shows up, and finally, Rose sees him for who he truly is.
He sent those roses to me.
Well, that's not true, Rose. Rose, believe me.
Okay.
The show finally begins, and it goes well until Brian gets in his feelings and shows up to reveal them at the worst time ever.
There's something about you, Swell. I don't even know what it is, but I feel better around you than anyone else.
And then her mother shows up, which forces Sue Ellen to finally reveal the truth.
I lied to everyone. I'm only 17. I have a curfew. I just finished high school. I can't even vote yet.
And of course, Carolyn loved all this shit. I got a funny feeling that she's still not gonna get the job. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, their mother wants answers, and they are still gaslighting her.
I specifically said no parties.
You weren't supposed to come home till next week.
Sorry to have messed up your plans. Who are these people?
And tell me why Sue Ellen talks to her mom like she's the child.
What did you do to yourself?
We'll talk about it in the morning, Mom. But for now, why don't you just go to your room?
This would not happen in real life. She didn't ask any questions, cuss anyone out, nothing. She just walked around her house in a daze.
I'll be damned.
And surprisingly, Rose wasn't even mad. They loved the designs and wanted to purchase their new line. After this experience, Kenny appears to have outgrown being a bum in training and now plans to take his life seriously moving forward, even planning to go to culinary school. I love that for him. Rose even offers Sue Ellen a position at the company, but Sue Ellen decides to try school and to enjoy being a young adult for a little while longer. Me being grown, I feel like she could have still worked there part-time and had some experience under her wing. Still, I do understand that her character learned how hard it was to be an adult and learned how much her mother had to deal with, and now she could truly appreciate being young and carefree. Sue Ellen finally makes it over to Brian to apologize and finally admits the truth. Brian quickly forgives her and everything seems to be back in order. Until...
One more thing. Yeah, Mom? Where is the babysitter?
And that's the end of the movie. And here are my final thoughts. This movie was kind of wild when you think about it. You had a mother with 5 crazy kids who did not respect or appreciate her. She leaves for a much-deserved vacation, hires a babysitter to look after the kids. The babysitter dies, taking the money the mother gave her to care for the kids with her, forcing the oldest kid to scramble and take care of the kids during the summer since, for some odd reason, they don't want the mom to come back home. And let's bring up the fact that this girl lied on her resume, stole petty cash, and made false receipts for the money used that her manager approved. So technically, she should be fired as well. Had a whole kid designing uniforms. And let's look at this uniform. Would you let a nurse wearing this outfit take care of you? Really? They really had us thinking she was doing something. And honestly, Carolyn had a right to be mad about losing her position to an unqualified child. I give her that. But I don't believe she would have gotten the job anyway because Rose didn't like her. Carolyn had such a mean girl personality. She would have schemed to somehow get Rose's position in the end. I'm sure of it. Sadly, it took Sue Ellen having to be a stand-in parent for her siblings during the summer to appreciate being young and not having so much responsibility, and to also understand what her mother had to go through. Being a single mom, trying to raise 5 badass kids, and she was obviously doing very well for herself, but just imagine all the things she had to do and sacrifice to get there. And then to see Kenny's growth in the end as well, him starting off as a bum in training, not going to school, not being an active part of the family, constantly hanging out with his friends who are intentionally failing school so that they don't have to grow up, to him being a responsible older sibling and discovering his love of cooking and even considering making it a career was cool to see. But realistically, Sue and Kenny should have been in jail because, first of all, you dumped a body at a funeral home. There should have been an investigation at least. You are riding around in a dead woman's car. You score a job using false information. You misuse company funds, which your boss approves. So she'll be done for it too. Too much. And did she even pay the money back? Child, I guess we'll never know. But anyway, y'all, that's it for this review. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And for my next review, all I'm gonna say is highly requested. It's a Tyler Perry film. And honestly, this was his last good movie starring a repeat mother-daughter duo. See you next time, you guys. Bye.